All I want to do is get to where I'm going.
This is the DIY Artist Route and You podcast, helping musicians and creative entrepreneurs navigate the uncommon path to success. Hi, I'm D. Grant Smith. I'm very excited and honored to present this podcast episode to you. If you're able to take notes, today's guest has a fountain of gold for you to take in that will transform how you see yourself, your art, your fans, your tribe, and your pathway forward. Seth Godin is a renowned best-selling author, blogger, and speaker in the realms of business marketing. Beyond that, Seth is a very observant person who takes incredible notes on the world around him, what people are drawn to, what they connect with, and what they don't. Instead of just seeing things as they are, he asks, why? It's that inquisitive nature and his ability to interpret what is really going on in the exchanges we have with ideas, other people, and our connections that first drew me to his work. I admit I am a reader and a big fan of his work and his blog, which I will mention a couple times in our conversation. One of Seth's books made my 2015 book list, and I highly recommend you read it after listening to our conversation about storytelling. You'll understand why. The book and details are at dgrantsmith.com. Seth and I talked through Skype, and I do appreciate him joining us while he was nursing a sinus infection. That's real class. Are you ready for this?
Let's go.
All right. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk with you is, kind of like I said in the email, as a marketing person and also as a person that works with musicians, I see a lot of the things and ideas that you talk about have applications in a variety of different areas, and in particular, tribes, the purple cow, and idea virus are all things that really have concepts that I can communicate with some of the people that I work with. But I want to kind of key in on just tribes and purple cow for most of our conversation. With regards to artists, you've said that anyone can really be an artist without restricting themselves to just the artist title. But what are you seeing in the creative spaces of maybe music and business that artists should key in on to really succeed in growing their tribes?
Well, let's unpack that a little bit. Let's start with the idea that there's a difference between a painter and an artist. I visited a village in China in November called Dafan, where they paint thousands and thousands of oil paintings every day, over and over and over again. They are not artists, they are painters. The same way someone who gets a Bob Dylan songbook and croaks out the chords and the songs isn't an artist, they're just a singer. So what we have to do first, commit to this idea that if we're going to make art, we're going to be wrong, we're going to be on the fringes, we're going to be rejected, we are going to do things that might not work. It's going to be personal, we'll be vulnerable, we're going to connect to other people. A lot of people aren't up for that. But if you are up for it, then that's where we begin. And then the second half of your question is tribes. Most artists don't have a tribe. Most artists connect to a tribe that already exists. That you don't get to say, I'm Stephen Stills, I have a tribe. What you can say is the people who went to Woodstock view me as one of their spokespeople. Those are two different things, right? And so the goal is not to have a fan base, though Kevin Kelly's 1,000 fans is a critical idea. The goal of connecting with a tribe is to understand, A, it's not for everyone, and B, the people who it is for are seeking connection and they're hoping to be seen.
That's real. You answered a question before I had a chance to ask.
Sorry.
No. I'm glad you did that. The natural progression of it. So for an artist that has the start of a tribe, what would you recommend being ways of making stronger connections with that tribe?
Well, I think it begins with the fact that very few people care about you. They care about themselves. They care about how your work, your life will make them feel. And too many artists get self-absorbed. Too many artists feel like what they're doing is so important that they don't need to pay attention to what other people want, what other people need, other people's narrative about who they are and what it means to wear your t-shirt. Now, if someone goes to school wearing your t-shirt, what are they saying about themselves? What are they saying to their friends? These are choices you get to make before you even make the t-shirt.
Right on. It kind of ties in. I talk a lot on my platform about the power of being uncommon and how truly powerful people that command audiences and command attention are people that are not normal and are not common. And I think that's a lot of the same idea that you talk about in your book, Purple Cow. Will you kind of dive into and maybe unpack a little bit more of the Purple Cow as it pertains to musicians?
I saw a guy in the subway playing like 14 instruments at the same time. That's not a purple cow. That's just weird. It's not even weird. It just wasn't worth stopping. It wasn't worth thinking about. It wasn't worth telling other people. Purple cow is the idea that if people talk about you, then by definition, you are remarkable. If you are remarkable, that means the word will spread. The goal is not to get them to talk about you with condescension or to talk about you dismissively. It's to talk about you in a way that makes them feel more alive, more like themselves, more engaged with others. So what we can do is think hard about how vital music is to our self-definition and to choose to be an artist who does work that others can't help but talk about. Not everyone, but some people. And so, Lady Gaga's exploits and stunts may have seemed like a cry for attention. What she was really doing was giving voice to an entire cohort of young women who saw her as someone who stood for empowerment. And so by talking about Lady Gaga, they were actually talking about empowering themselves. That was a choice that Lady Gaga made.
That's okay. Interesting point. I want to go back a little bit in history, in your history in particular. I guess a little bit of a background to kind of how you and I got this conversation started. I've been feeling this way for a little while, and I guess it took an email for me to be able to express myself. But every morning I open my email and I start my day basically reading your latest blog post. And at several different times over the past several weeks, I've thought, and this is like a voice of direction in a desert of nothingness where I don't really know where to go. And I'm sure other people feel that way. And so I kind of likened it to Moses in the wilderness. And that's exactly what it is that it's like to start my day. I feel like I've got some direction. But I'm curious about when you were first getting started developing your brand and developing your uncommonness. What was it that kind of sparked you to give you the strength to show off your uniqueness when you were first getting started?
The times were super different in 1984 and 1986. I would go to the business section of the bookstore once a week and maybe there'd be 3 new books. You could read Forbes or Fortune, but they were sort of banal and for big companies. It was easy to be rejected again and again and again and hard to find a compass. I decided that the first thing I needed to do was not go out of business. So the work I did at the beginning wasn't particularly off the wall or remarkable in the sense that I was just trying to make books that people would buy. But over time, what I discovered is that it's almost impossible to fit in all the way, that fitting in more doesn't really help. And I discovered that standing out and standing for something worked better. That being able to say to someone, no, I can't make that for you, sorry, why don't you call this person, was way more powerful than bidding on an RFP and trying to compete with everyone to make the same sort of thing.
So finding a specialty and sticking with it instead of trying to be all things to all people.
Yeah, as my friend Zig used to say, being a meaningful specific, not a wandering generality.
Well, then that really does lend itself to that voice in the desert. So good to know that you found yourself in a similar place. I have a kind of a question from one of my subscribers. The fact that we're all moved to respond to things that impact us in specific ways and stuff that inspires and connects with us. What is it that inspires you, Seth, that causes you to connect and give attention to people?
Well, those are 2 different things. What I do for a living is notice stuff. So I seek every day to notice things that I haven't seen before, things that are on the edges, things that are resonating with other people. If something's working, I try to figure out why. If something's not working, I try to figure out why. In terms of what inspires me to keep doing this, the answer is my readers, people like you, artists everywhere who are finding more can have a voice. The more I see them do that, the more I have a hunch I'm on the right track.
Storytelling is a very big part of what you do, and it's something that you advocate for very strongly. Aside from the fact that it's a naturally appealing way to get plugged into something, why do you believe so strongly in the power of storytelling?
All right, well, can we be really clear what I mean by storytelling? I don't mean The Princess Bride.
No. I think that's very clear. You don't need to worry about that.
I mean, I don't need to worry about it with you, but we're talking to strangers here.
Right.
So I don't know if your facial hair is the same way as it is in your Skype picture.
Yeah,
but
it is.
Your beard tells a story, and so I'm using that as an example, because I think it makes this really clear. Everything we do tells a story. And we have to decide if that story is coherent, if that story is going to resonate with the people that we are telling it to, if the judgment and the shortcuts that they can't help but find themselves adopting are in our favor or against our favor. And so it's everything from the way the door-to-door salesman takes a step backwards after you open the door, because that's a story about giving you space, even though they've just invaded your space, all the way to the dog food bowls that Devo used to wear on their head. These are stories that we tell, and the best artists tell them consistently.
What would you say would be a key or one, I guess, piece of advice of how somebody could become a better storyteller?
Everything we do is designed to make someone else change. If you don't know how you're trying to change someone, then you're wasting your time, or you're a little bit of a narcissist. If you decide you want to change someone, you need to figure out who you are trying to change. Because different people will be changed by different stories. And that is where it begins. What do you remind someone of? Because it's that reminding that does 80% of the job before you even open your mouth.
I asked you a minute ago about the things that you faced when you were starting out, and I'm curious about now the other side of the pond. I talk to a lot of artists that are either starting out or they're kind of in the mid throes of establishing their identity and their brand and all that stuff. And we talk about challenges that kind of people that face more obscurity and establishment work around. But I'm curious, from all the things that you've done and the platform that you've built, what are some of the obstacles that you face as someone with a very established brand?
Well, I don't look in the mirror and see an established brand. I think there are, maybe 1 million people who know who I am, which is very cool, and I'm privileged at that. But I'm thrilled I'm not a TV star, etc. I don't face the challenges that so many people face. I don't have to worry about paying for dinner. I don't have to worry about whether people 5 years from now will remember anything I did. So that's pretty cool. For me, the big thing is, will I use this opportunity properly? I've worked very hard to get this opportunity. I've earned the trust of a lot of people, which I'm forever grateful for, and I don't want to waste it.
I did have one more member of my community that was interested in something to ask you, and he's a guy that is a little bit older, and because of some health situations, he can't get out and do the face-to-face music performance that he once was able to do, but he still has that fire inside of him. And so the question is, how do folks that still have the fire but don't have the physical ability to get out and be in person with someone, how do they get their creation of people and not get taken advantage of?
Well, touring is a great solution for a certain kind of musician. I had a record label years ago, and one of the musicians on the record label lived in a van. They were a married couple, and they would drive to a town and play in a place that would take anybody, a coffee shop, and then drive to the next town. And I said to them, guys, you need to stay in one town for a while and work your way up the ladder and do gigs that are more difficult to get and build your following. Running from one place to another, imagining that you're paying your dues by touring, doesn't make any sense. And no one can tour the world. No one can cover every square inch. Running and running and running to the next easy town almost never pays as many dividends as focusing on a community, on a concept, whether it's geographical or not. That said, let's remember that Steely Dan did just wait for 5 years without playing one concert anywhere. That it is possible now more than ever to have people hear your stuff without ever meeting you. That, I have met many of my readers, but I haven't met even 5% of them because you can't meet all of them. So if I was unable or didn't want to be on the road, I think I could find a different way to make it as a musician. And that involves using the power of this digital connection engine we have to organize and amplify and connect people who want to be connected, to put such remarkable work into the world that people will embrace it even if they can't be in the same room with us. And, this started 150 years ago when the only way to perform music was in person. And it goes all the way to today, where if you're a big act, almost no one who hears you will ever hear you live.
That's really good. And I had no idea you had a record label, so that's even better. Okay, one more question for you, Seth. You've given some incredible gold nuggets of advice. I'm going to play on that analogy one more time about being in the desert and looking for the promised land. For someone who feels like they're in that place right now, curious about just taking one step forward, what would you advise to take a step in the direction of the promised land instead of wandering around in all the different possible ways that they could go?
Yeah, the analogy, I think, is going where we need it to, which is you're already in the promised land. That there is no place where everything lines up and you are miles down. That's never going to happen. What happens instead is you find 10 people, just 10 people who care so much about what you do, they tell someone else. You find 20 people, just 20 people who would miss you if you were gone. And then you repeat it and you repeat it and you repeat it. And the next thing you know, 3 years later, you're an overnight sensation. That it's this believing that the grass is greener is going to get you in trouble. You already got all the grass you're going to get. What you need to do is farm it, not go hunting.
Wow. This just comes naturally to you, doesn't it?
I've been practicing for a long time.
Well, you're very, very good at it. Very good at it. Well, thank you so much for giving me part of your afternoon, Seth, and for giving me part of your afternoon while you're nursing a sickness. I appreciate that. Well,
it's a privilege, and the work you're doing for your tribe doesn't go unnoticed. So I hope you will keep making your ruckus.
Seth Godin, best-selling author and marketing maven. Books referenced in this podcast and great additions for your personal library include Tribes, The Purple Cow, and Idea Virus. I also recommend All Marketers Are Liars / Tell Stories, which was one of my favorites that I read in 2015 and made that book list that I mentioned earlier. Seth is big on storytelling, and I am too. This book will help you tell your story even better. You can get more details on Seth and subscribe to his blog so that you can get your dose of Moses in the desert at SethGodin.ipad.com. You just took in a gold rush of great insights and advice, all in about 20 minutes. Go back, listen again to get all of the nuggets. Trust me, I've listened to this a few times to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Tell me what you connected with the most from this conversation. Are you asking questions about how you are a purple cow? Are you connecting with the tribe that will make you successful, or just trying to build an audience? Let's dive into these questions together, because guess what? I'm asking them too about what I do. Reach out by messaging me on Twitter at Appetizer Radio, email dgrantsmith@gmail.com, or you can visit my website, dgrantsmith.com. I want to hear from you and learn more about what you're working on. Until then, have a good day. I'll see you soon.